the hospitality industry, hotel room. That traditionally is a quite slow moving, old school industry. So to come in with technology and a technology that is quite new, you've got to break down a lot of walls and you really have to paint the picture for them. They need to know what is the benefit. They're not just going to put any old device in a room unless it can, in essence, drive revenue, help with operating efficiency, just be an incredible device. And so it is still a long process to break down, and educate. And in due course, you're going to see one of these devices, if not in every single hotel room, because it just makes so much sense.
Today, I'm joined by Andreas Cooper, Director of Smart Voice Systems. Smart Voice Systems uses Volera Voice First software, introducing businesses to voice first applications so that they can better prepare themselves for the business in the future. Welcome to the Sound and Marketing Podcast.
Thank you so much. Pleasure to be here.
I'm glad you can make it. All of your traveling, I'm glad you're home safe and sound. Did you want to go ahead and give us kind of an introduction to your company for Smart Voice Systems and how it plays into the voice hospitality services?
So originally started with me in home automation. So I started a company here in New Zealand importing automation products. And then, as that grew and we saw, where some of this voice stuff was going, we initially saw Alexa for hospitality. So their native software that they were kind of gonna work on. And as soon as we saw that, if you're in New Zealand, if you're in this part of the world and you can just have a small amount of vision and you can look across to the US and see the trends there, you got a huge advantage, again, to bring that back and to be ready when it becomes available here in New Zealand. So, for example, we in my research, I just touched base with David, the CEO of Volera, on LinkedIn. I reached out, and it was that simple. And over the last couple months or 6 months to a year, we've been just building that relationship, building that trust, looking at applications, working around the small limitations that we have here, based in what Amazon lets us do. And yeah, we're very excited to bring, voice technology, because we see it booming. I think the rest of the world, anyone with any form of, business nous or vision can see this is going to be big. And you just have to be, I guess, ahead of everyone else and, work around the things that are limiting right now.
I agree. I think that, it's you have to be ahead of everything. And so in order to do that, you have to experiment. And I think that that's what's slowing a lot of people down, is they're afraid to try something different than what they've been doing, because what they've been doing seems to be solid. And it probably is right now. But who knows? I mean, like in the next even 2 years, it's just been flying by, like what people have been coming up with and experimenting with and the things that are on the horizon. It's absolutely insane. And I think that it could be one of those things. I don't know if you know about this story, but when Netflix started up, they actually came to Blockbuster and pitched the idea, and Blockbuster said no. And now Blockbuster is gone. So it's one of those things where it's like you need to have your finger on the pulse, or something like that could happen.
One of the big industries we obviously see, is the hospitality industry, hotel rooms. And so that traditionally is a quite slow moving, old school industry. So to come in with technology and a technology that is quite new, you've got to break down a lot of walls and you really have to paint the picture for them. And with a lot of hotels and a lot of hotel rooms, for example, they need to know what is the benefit. They're not just going to put any old device in a room, outside of the necessities, unless it can, in essence, drive revenue, help with operating efficiency, and just be an incredible, device. And so, we're excited for that one. But, it has been, and it is still a long process to break down, and educate and again, we have to hang in there. But it gets pretty obvious that in due course, you're going to see one of these devices, if not in every single hotel room, because it just makes so much sense.
Well, and I think that, staying in hotels is kind of the passé kind of thing to do now. There's Airbnb and HomeAway and all of those places.
Yeah.
I was actually chatting with, it's a nonprofit that is trying to promote like local hotels, staying in the hotels rather than Airbnb, because they want to bring business into the city itself rather than, the private industry and everything like that. So the way I see it is bring in the new technology to the old way of doing things, kind of like merging the old and the new together. And I feel like that should be something that the hotels that are used to like doing things the way that they do things, it would be maybe like, what's the word I'm looking for? An easier transition into new. So it's just like a piece of the new. So they're being like kind of cool, without like having to go completely into a different model yet.
We have seen that, and that term "cool" you say, to categorize a hotel. We've seen, and with discussions with David in the UK and even hotels in the US, some of those cool branded or those retro or the millennial hotel rooms, those ones are, I guess, the ones that we've seen the biggest adoption. You think of cool in terms of decor and all that stuff. Those are the ones that definitely are seeing this and being like, yes, we're a millennial hotel, as it were. We have all the latest tech and all these different features, and voice for them, I think, is a lot easier adoption than a hotel. And I think you're right. On the Airbnb side, if I may, we think this voice solution for Airbnbs is if not as strong as the hotel industry. For example, it originally started with Airbnb and hosting, but a lot of Airbnb hosts, they want to remove as much pain or work from hosting an Airbnb as possible. So what we propose is with the Vollara software and voice, we can obviously program into the speakers all the key information the guests could ever ask or want. Simple things like, what is the Wi-Fi code? How do you turn on the dishwasher? How do you turn on the stove? Some of these things that, in your home, you know how to do them easily. When you go to someone else's home, you can find them a little bit more difficult. So by simply asking the speaker, we can pre-program in, exactly those key instructions. So the host isn't bombarded with questions, at every hour of the day, and taking that joy or the benefits of hosting an Airbnb out of it. So yeah, we're excited because I think there's real good application there as well for a system like this.
That's fascinating. Can you explain a little bit, because this is what, I don't quite grasp it. I get it, but I don't get it. Can you explain what the Vollara voice software does? Like, what is it that this is doing that's different than just like a smart speaker, plopped into a hotel room or an Airbnb?
First and foremost, one of the biggest strengths is their patent pending accuracy engine. So when it comes to voice right now, there's still a reasonable margin of error. So when you ask a question of your Google or Alexa speaker, first and foremost, it's going to probably use the search engine that's got it built in. If you've programmed into it custom routines or commands specific to a question or an automation, if you don't say that nearly word for word, it's gonna probably miss. So what we do, and with Vollara, what you're able to do is to the nth degree, you can add in hundreds of variations of the exact same question. From broken English to because we ask for certain things in a lot of different ways. We remove a word here and there in the sentence. We use slang. So with that accuracy engine, we can ensure, and when we do fail, we can improve on by adding in that failure, in terms of what Alexa interpreted, to ensure that when you're asking a question, no matter how you ask it, if it's for a towel, or if it's for, slippers, if it's for the lights to turn on and off, even in broken English, we can ensure that it's going to respond how you want. And so that's so important. The accuracy has to be good, because if it doesn't interpret, it will throw out a custom response to promote you, for example, to call the reception, or say, hey, please ask that question again, because there's, we are working on that accuracy, but it's gonna take some time to get it to perfection. So that's kind of the the accuracy engine, but what it's also doing is completely secure. And this is one of the, if not the biggest thing in terms of privacy. So at the end of the day, there's no personal details linked, to any command or any request that you make. So the only thing that Amazon sees is a room number. So they're going to see that this command is coming from room 200, where, for example, on your personal account, or if you take a device off the shelf and you put it into a hotel room and you add in, you have to add in details like your address, your name, all of these personal details, which, makes it not secure and not private. So those are the two biggest things that we see as why this technology is ready. It's private for the customers, and the accuracy of when they ask for a question, no matter how they ask it, we can ensure that the correct response is delivered. But again, imagine customizations to the nth degree. Whatever the hotel wants to promote or push within a matter of minutes, we can program that, put it with a specific question, and we can deliver custom recordings, custom so much.
That's really cool. I was thinking of like two examples that would be a huge sell for me. Like for one, you're talking about like if you don't say something specifically one way, Alexa or whoever won't understand you. And I'm just thinking of, so my husband and I, we just got a new to us car, and it's a 2010, and it has like a not Sirius XM. Oh gosh, what is it called? Sync. Microsoft Sync. But it's an old version of Sync that they discontinued. So we have the capacity to push the button and say, find Bluetooth, but still I know that's the wrong way to say it. So I can't link my phone to the speakers in the car, and it's so frustrating. And I laugh about it every time, because I was like, I didn't have this before the car, but now I'm frustrated that I can't get it. So it's just like one of those things where it's like, almost if you can't work with it easily, it's actually worse to have the new technology. So that's a huge thing. And then the other thing that I was thinking about for the privacy, everyone's about privacy. Like everybody wants like the ease of service and all this stuff, but they don't want to share anything, which doesn't make any sense.
Yeah,
but
that's right.
But I mean, like if you're saying like this is privacy, there's nothing being stored from your information, like nobody can like track you or whatever. It's a huge deal, because I mean, when you stay at like say an Airbnb and the person before you forgot to sign out of their Netflix, now you have access to their account, like that sort of thing. Yeah. So yeah, I think those are huge sells. That's really, really cool. And then so the hotels can program whatever they want. Do they tend to do things like maybe promotionary deals for the restaurant down the street, or like do they involve the community at hand as well?
Definitely. And we ultimately, we press them to do that. For example, we have to do a lot of babysitting, especially, early on, in terms of, we'll sit down with them. What is important to you? At the end of the day, what do you want to get out of these voice speakers? Is it to drive revenue to on-site services? Is it that revenue capabilities, or is it ultimately operating efficiency? So for example, just by requesting a towel, and with the correct integrations, that can go straight to their ticketing service that they have in-house. So yeah, for us, we do push right now where it is, because there are integrations into room controls, music, so much different things. But each of those integrations does cost, and so natively as it is, the device can do so much already. First of all, with Amazon's latest update is, they've got a clock inbuilt to the device. And for a lot of people, that's a tiny upgrade. For us, that's monumental.
Oh, I saw that.
For example, yeah. So now, I boldly tell any hotel, do not ever replace your clocks, when you do replace your clocks, do not get another dumb clock, get an Amazon Alexa device, because it is in essence so much more. It's cheaper than a clock. And you've got so much you can do with it, and it actually can, bring revenue to the hotel through, like you said, promotions to, the on-site services, or eventually what we see as a big opportunity is local restaurants or attractions being able to market directly through the hotel speakers. For example, that the attraction down the road purchases a slot for a month in that hotel, and when the guests ask for, can you recommend any local activities or any question in that regard, that attraction has purchased that slot, and so then the hotel, this device, it turns into a really strong revenue generating machine, and we'll do it very subtly, so it doesn't really come across as a marketing pitch, but just by a simple, hey, here's a 10% discount for this local service, we do push them to the on-site or attractions. So yeah, there's a lot of opportunity within that realm, but again, it's whatever the hotel wants. If it's an event, we can do custom recordings for weddings, we can do conference stuff. It's really whatever they want to push and promote, we can really, again, customize it completely.
Yeah, and going back to, you were saying that Amazon has the time clock on their speakers now. I also think, because there's a whole generation, and not even just a generation, but just people that don't want to adopt new things. So I won't even say generational, but those that are hesitant to try new things, if you put a face on it of something familiar, it's less intimidating. So if they're just looking at an alarm clock, they're like, okay, I can figure this out, It could be as simplistic as possible, and, like, my dad wouldn't really be into it. Like, he's like, I don't know what that is. I don't want to touch that. But if you put a face on it that's familiar, then they can kind of, it might be a little bit easier for them to adopt the idea of using it.
I think that is fair. I think a lot of this voice, or these voice speakers, or even just assistants we have on our phone, they're, first of all, they haven't been that accurate or good, so we haven't really used them. But now that accuracy and that performance is increasing drastically, there's still that kind of like, I feel a little bit uncomfortable talking, I feel a little bit shy. And so you're right. If you kind of just have a Echo Dot on the side table, it's not, for some people, they don't know how to use it. Once you see people use it and they understand that, I say Alexa, and then I can ultimately ask for whatever I want, and they get some bit of information, or they get an automation response back, it is in essence magic, and it does, you do feel this little buzz where, oh wow, and from there, you do see that it does grow on people. So people that aren't using it, or like, this I can't see myself using this. At the end of the day, the learning curve is pretty small. At the end of the day, you need to know what the command is to trigger it, which is Alexa or Hey Google. But other than that, we all know how to speak, and we all know how to kind of have a two-way conversation. So the ability for anyone to kind of figure it out once they the initial response, it is pretty easy, and that's our hope. The adoption rate or the learning curve is very, very, very small.
To get in contact with Andreas, you can find him on LinkedIn. For more information on his company, go to smartvoicesystems.nz. The links will also be provided in the show notes. If you enjoyed today's episode, please follow, subscribe, leave a review, and share. You can follow and subscribe on iTunes, Spotify, Google Play, iHeartRadio, Pandora, and Stitcher. And don't forget to enter promo code SOUNDINMARKETING for your 1-month free trial to Stitcher Premium. This podcast was produced by Dreamr Productions and hosted, written, and edited by me, Jeanna Isham. For inquiries on producing and developing your own podcast, or for inquiries on sonic branding and sound branding consultation availabilities, you can find me at dreamrproductions.com. That's DREAMR Productions.com. You can also email me at Jeanna, JEANNA, at dreamrproductions.com. You can also connect with me on LinkedIn or follow me on Facebook. As always, all links will be provided in the show notes below. Let's make this world of sound more intriguing, more unique, and more on brand.